Frank Morrison stood outside his restaurant, looking up at the sign that read Stellar Bites. The bright lights made the words glow against the evening sky. 15 years had passed since he last set foot on Earth. 15 years since he had left his small but growing restaurant chain to become a diplomat among the stars. The building looked different than he remembered. Bigger, shinier, with fancy decorations that showed both Earth foods and alien delicacies. A digital screen next to the door showed the restaurant's famous slogan, "Humanity's Flavors, Universe's Delight." Frank ran a hand over his bald head and took a deep breath. No one would recognize him now. When he left Earth, he had been just another businessman with a dream of sharing human food with alien visitors. Now, across 3 arms of the galaxy, he was known as the negotiator, the human who could solve any problem with a mix of tough talk and fair deals. His face had appeared in ads for years, but always in his younger form, always wearing the fancy clothes of his official position. Today he wore simple jeans and a black t-shirt that stretched across his muscular chest. A plain jacket covered most of his tattoos. No one would expect to see the famous Frank Morrison walking into his own restaurant, without warning or fanfare. That was exactly how he wanted it. The reports he had received worried him. Employee happiness was down. Food quality complaints were up. Something was wrong with his Earth restaurants, and he needed to see for himself without anyone putting on a show for the boss. Frank pushed open the door and stepped inside. The smell hit him first, familiar spices and cooking meat. But something was different. The scent had a fake quality, like someone had tried to copy the original but missed small details. The lunch crowd filled most tables. Humans sat eating alongside at least 10 different alien species. Near the window, a family of Praxians used their 4-fingered hands to carefully pick up hamburgers. Their blue skin and tall, narrow heads stood out among the human customers, but no one seemed to notice. This mixing of species had become normal in the years since first contact. Frank felt a small burst of pride. The Praxians had been among the first aliens he had made friends with. Their love of Earth beef had helped create the first trade agreement between humans and their species. Now here they were, enjoying his food like it was the most normal thing in the galaxy. A young server approached with a bright smile. Her name tag read, "Kathy. Welcome to Stellar Bites." "Table for one?" she asked. Frank nodded and followed her to a small booth in the corner. Perfect. From here, he could watch both, the dining area and the kitchen entrance. "Can I get you something to drink?" Kathy asked, handing him a menu. "Just coffee, black," Frank said, keeping his naturally deep voice a bit softer than normal. He had become famous for that voice. It had helped him intimidate alien warlords and calm frightened diplomats across dozens of worlds. As Kathy walked away, Frank studied the menu. Too many items, he noticed right away. The original Stellar Bites had focused on doing a few dishes perfectly. This menu had clearly been expanded to offer something for every alien species, but that would make quality control nearly impossible for a normal kitchen staff. The coffee arrived quickly. Frank took a sip and nearly spit it out. Bitter and burnt, nothing like the premium coffee his restaurants were supposed to serve. He set the cup down and went back to watching. Most of the workers moved quickly, rushing between tables with practiced efficiency. But as he watched longer, he noticed something in their faces. The smiles dropped the moment they turned away from customers. When they passed each other, there were no friendly words or small jokes. Everyone seemed to be going through motions without any real feeling. This was not how Stellar Bites was supposed to be. Frank had built the company on the idea that happy workers made good food and created good experiences. These people looked tired and unhappy. After 30 minutes of watching and barely touching his terrible coffee, Frank decided to get a closer look at the back areas. He stood up, left some money on the table, and walked toward the restroom signs. The hallway would take him past the break room and give him a view into the kitchen. As he walked down the hall, a sound made him stop. Someone was crying. The soft sobs came from behind a door marked "Employees Only." The door stood slightly open, and Frank could see part of the small break room inside. A young woman sat on a chair, bent over with her face in her hands. Her server uniform had the name Lily Johnson stitched on it. Her shoulders shook as she tried to control her crying. Another server, a man with Dan Peterson on his uniform, stood next to her with his hand on her shoulder. "It's just not fair," Lily said between sobs. "My mom needs that operation so badly. When I started here, they promised that after a year I would get the full healthcare package. That's why I took this job instead of the better-paying one at the mall." "I know," Dan said, his voice angry but quiet. "They've broken every promise since the big changes 3 years ago. It's all about money now." Frank felt his hands form fists at his sides. "The original owner, that Frank Morrison guy, they say he really cared about the workers," Dan continued. "Called us Earth's ambassadors to the stars and made sure everyone had good pay and benefits. Now they just use his face in ads while they cut everything he built." "I have to smile and tell customers how great this company is," Lily said, wiping her eyes. "How we're like a big family, it's all lies." Frank stepped back, not wanting to be seen. His mind raced with questions and growing anger. This was not possible. He had left clear instructions with his business partner, Gregory Collins. The company values were supposed to be protected. Employee benefits were supposed to be sacred. Something had gone very wrong during his 15 years away from Earth. Frank Morrison had returned just in time to hear the truth that no executive would have told him. He walked quickly toward the exit, already planning his next moves. He had faced down angry aliens and stopped wars between distant worlds. Fixing his own company might be his biggest challenge yet. But first, he needed answers. And someone was going to pay for what had been done to his dream and to people like Lily Johnson. Frank checked into a small hotel 3 blocks from his restaurant. He chose a place that catered to both humans and aliens, where no one would look twice at a quiet man keeping to himself. The room was plain but clean, with a desk that would serve his needs. Within minutes of closing the door, Frank had transformed the simple hotel room into a working space. He placed his personal data pad on the desk and activated the security features that came with his diplomatic status. A soft blue shield of light surrounded the device, ensuring no one could spy on his activities. Computer, access Stellar Bytes, company database. Authorization Morrison Delta 7, Frank said. The screen flickered. Voice print recognized. Welcome, Founder Morrison. Warning. Your access codes have not been used in 5,472 Earth days. Security protocols require additional verification. Frank pressed his thumb against the screen and looked into the camera. The computer scanned his eye pattern and fingerprint. Identity confirmed. Accessing database. Files began to appear on the screen faster than most humans could read them, but Frank had learned to process information quickly during his years as a diplomat. He had often needed to review alien treaties in minutes before making life-changing decisions. What he saw in the company files made his blood boil. 2 years after he had left Earth, his business partner Gregory Collins had secretly sold controlling interest in the company. The buyer was Nexus Corporation, a huge company known for buying smaller businesses and squeezing them for every cent of profit. On paper, Stellar Bytes still appeared to be run by the original management team. Gregory's name still appeared as CEO. But hidden in contract language and buried in financial transfers was the truth. Every major decision now came from Nexus executives who had never even met an alien. Frank dug deeper. Employee benefits had been cut by 67% over the past 3 years. The special training programs he had created, teaching staff about alien cultures and dining customs, had been reduced to a short video. Even the food quality had been compromised, with cheaper ingredients replacing the carefully chosen ones Frank had selected. Worst of all, Frank discovered that his own image and reputation were being used against his values. Marketing materials showed his face next to promises the company no longer kept. There were plans for a new advertising campaign called Frank's Promise that would talk about family values while announcing another round of cuts to employee health care. Computer, show me personnel file for Lily Johnson, server at the New Baltimore. Location, Frank said. Her file appeared on screen. Lily had worked for Stellar Bytes for 14 months. Her performance reviews were excellent. Notes from her manager described her as always positive with customers and willing to work extra shifts. Her pay had increased only once, by 25 cents per hour. A note in her file from 3 months ago caught Frank's attention. Lily had requested information about the health care package she believed she would receive after 1 year of employment. The request had been denied with a note. Policy change made before employee's hire date. Grandfathering not approved by corporate. Frank closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them, he knew what he needed to do next. "Computer, call Sandra Martinez," he said. The screen changed to show a woman in a crisp uniform of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her expression was serious until she recognized Frank. Then she broke into a wide smile. "Frank, I heard rumors you were back on Earth. Are the problems with the Krell really settled?" "For now," Frank said. "But I have a different problem I need your help with. Something wrong right here on Earth." Sandra's smile faded as Frank explained what he had discovered about his company. As a captain in the diplomatic corps, Sandra had access to information beyond what even Frank's codes could reach. "I'll see what I can find," she promised. "Give me a few hours." While waiting for Sandra's call, Frank continued his research. He found the names of the Nexus Corporation executives who now really controlled his company. He studied their backgrounds and discovered patterns of buying companies, cutting costs, and walking away with huge profits while leaving ruined businesses behind. "These people don't care about building something good," Frank muttered to himself. "They only care about taking what others have built." His data pad chimed 3 hours later. Sandra's face appeared on screen, her expression grim. "It's worse than you thought, Frank," she said. "Nexus isn't just destroying your company's values. They're using your restaurant chain for something illegal." She sent files to his pad and Frank opened them to see classified reports from the Earth Intelligence Services. "They're using your restaurants near the border zone as cover for trading with the Krell," Sandra explained. The Krell were the one alien species that had refused Earth's friendship. They remained cold and distant, though they had agreed not to start a war. Any trade with them required special permission, especially for advanced technology. "The reputation you built gives them perfect cover," Sandra continued. "No one questions shipments going to and from Stellar Bites restaurants because your name stands for honest business. But they're moving restricted tech through your supply chain." Frank studied the evidence. The same executives who had cut Lily Johnson's healthcare were making millions selling Earth technology to a potentially dangerous alien species. "I need to move quickly," Frank said. "How soon can you get me a list of all the major shareholders? And I need to know when the next board meeting is scheduled." "Already done," Sandra replied. "There's a major shareholder meeting in 6 days. All the Nexus executives will be there, along with Gregory Collins." "Perfect," Frank said. His mind was already forming a plan. "One more thing. Can you contact Ambassador Kielra of the Praxians? Tell him I need a favor," the one he offered. "After I helped negotiate the Proxima Treaty." Sandra raised an eyebrow but nodded. "I can arrange that. What are you planning, Frank?" Frank's expression hardened, the look that had made alien warlords hesitate during tense negotiations. "I'm planning to take back what's mine," he said, "and make things right for people like Lily Johnson." As he ended the call, Frank began making a list of allies he would need. His years in space had earned him friends across the galaxy. Now it was time to call in some favors. Gregory Collins and Nexus Corporation had no idea what was coming for them. 5 days passed quickly as Frank worked on his plan. His hotel room walls were now covered with information. Pictures of Nexus executives, shipping records, and employee files filled every space. Frank had slept little, driven by a growing anger at what had been done to his company and its people. Captain Sandra Martinez arrived early on the 5th morning carrying a secure case. She looked tired but determined. "I've got everything you asked for," she said, opening the case to reveal official documents in a small metal box. "It wasn't easy. Some of these people have powerful friends." Frank nodded. "That won't help them tomorrow. Did you reach all the ambassadors?" 7 have confirmed they'll be there. The others sent representatives," Sandra replied. "The Praxian ambassador Kielra sends his personal regards." He said he's looking forward to seeing the negotiator in action again. Frank allowed himself a small smile. During his years as a diplomat, he had become known for solving problems through talking rather than fighting. But his reputation also came from his willingness to stand firm when needed. "And the financial records?" Frank asked. Sandra pulled out a data chip. "Everything is here. The Galactic Trade Commission has reviewed it all. The evidence is clear. Nexus violated at least 16 trade laws." Frank inserted the chip into his datapad and scanned the information. The record showed how Nexus had used Stellar Bites restaurants to move restricted technology. They had hidden the illegal trades inside normal food shipments, counting on Frank's good name to avoid inspections. "They used everything I built as cover for their crimes," Frank said quietly. His deep voice had a dangerous edge to it. "What about the employees?" Sandra asked. "You said helping them was your first priority." Frank walked to a different section of his wall display. "I've prepared new contracts restoring all original benefits, and this," he pointed to a document titled Employee Ownership Program, "will give shares in the company to everyone who has worked there over a year." Sandra whistled. "That's going to cost a fortune." "It's not about money," Frank replied. "It's about making things right. These people kept my dream alive while I was away, even when the company turned against them. They deserve to share in its success." Frank turned to a new document on his pad. "I've also arranged for Lily Johnson's mother to receive the medical care she needs. The hospital has already approved everything. The operation is scheduled for next week." Sandra placed a hand on Frank's shoulder. "You're a good man, Frank. That's why so many aliens respect you, even the difficult ones." Frank shook his head. "I'm just trying to fix my mistakes. I trusted Gregory to protect what we built. I should have checked more often." "You were building peace between worlds," Sandra reminded him. "That seems like a good reason to be busy." Frank didn't answer. Instead, he moved to the metal box Sandra had brought. Inside was his official diplomatic uniform, cleaned and pressed. The dark blue fabric was decorated with medals and honors from a dozen alien worlds. Each one represented a crisis solved, a war prevented, or a treaty signed. "I haven't worn this in years," Frank said, lifting the uniform. "Most days out there I dressed like the aliens I was working with. It helped them feel comfortable." "You'll need it tomorrow," Sandra said. "The full ambassador look will remind everyone of your authority." Frank nodded and carefully laid the uniform on his bed. Tomorrow would change everything. "Are the transport arrangements ready?" he asked. "Yes. We have diplomatic shuttles prepared to bring all the alien representatives to Earth headquarters," Sandra confirmed. "They'll arrive just after the shareholder meeting begins. Maximum dramatic effect as you requested." Frank checked his datapad one last time. "The timing has to be perfect. Gregory is scheduled to give his presentation at 10:30. We should arrive at 10:45, right when he'll be discussing the employee benefit cuts. My team will be in position by 10:00, Sandra added. "Once you make your move, we'll secure the building and begin the official investigation." Frank sat down on the edge of the bed, suddenly looking tired. "I never wanted any of this. I just wanted to share Earth food with our new friends among the stars, to show aliens the best of humanity." Sandra sat beside him. "And you did that. For 15 years you showed the galaxy what humans can be at our best. Now you're going to show Nexus the same thing." They spent the rest of the day finalizing details. Sandra's team delivered reports on security at Stellar Bites headquarters and profiles of everyone expected to attend the meeting. Frank made calls to his alien allies, confirming their roles in tomorrow's plan. As evening fell, Frank stood at the hotel window looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Lily Johnson was probably serving dinner to humans and aliens, still worried about her mother's health, still unaware that her life would change tomorrow. "Computer, show me the current status of New Baltimore restaurant," Frank said. His datapad displayed a live feed from the restaurant's systems. The dinner rush was in full swing. Frank could see Lily moving between tables, her smile perfect for the customers despite the worry he knew she carried. Frank made a decision. He picked up his secure communicator. "Sandra, I need one more thing for tomorrow," he said when she answered. I want Lily Johnson and Dan Peterson from the new Baltimore location brought to headquarters, not as targets, as witnesses. They should see this. I'll arrange it, Sandra promised. Personal escorts, full diplomatic treatment. Frank thanked her and ended the call. Then he turned back to the window, his face set with determination. For 15 years he had negotiated with alien leaders, prevented wars, and built bridges between different species. Tomorrow he would use all that experience for a very personal mission. Gregory Collins and Nexus Corporation had stolen his company. They had hurt his employees. They had used his name to cover their crimes. Tomorrow, Frank Morrison would show them why the galaxy called him the negotiator. Not because he always compromised, but because he always found a way to win. The morning of the shareholder meeting dawned bright and clear. Frank woke early, his mind already focused on the day ahead. He showered quickly and put on his diplomatic uniform. The dark blue fabric felt stiff after years of wearing more casual clothes. He glanced in the mirror and barely recognized himself. The medals and honors across his chest told the story of his years among the stars. At precisely 9 hours, a soft knock came at his door. Frank opened it to find Captain Sandra Martinez waiting with 2 junior officers. "Everything is ready," Sandra reported. "The alien representatives are on their way to Earth now. They'll rendezvous with us outside headquarters at 10:30. Frank nodded and gathered his datapad. "And the 2 employees from New Baltimore?" "Already picked up. My team told them they were being brought in for a special company announcement. They're waiting in a transport near headquarters. They seem nervous." "They should be," Frank said as they walked to the elevator. "Their world is about to change." Outside the hotel, a sleek black diplomatic vehicle waited. Frank slid into the back seat beside Sandra while the junior officers took the front. As they drove through the morning traffic, Frank reviewed his notes one last time. "Are you ready for this?" Sandra asked quietly. "Gregory was your friend once." Frank's face hardened. "That's what makes this necessary. He betrayed not just me, but everything we built together. He betrayed every employee who trusted us." The car moved smoothly through the city, its diplomatic markings ensuring they passed through security checkpoints without delay. Frank watched the buildings pass, noting how much Earth had changed in 15 years. More alien influences showed in the architecture and advertisements. The planet had embraced its place in the galactic community. "We're approaching the rendezvous point," the driver announced as they turned onto a quiet side street 3 blocks from Stellar Bytes headquarters. Frank looked out the window to see 3 transport vehicles waiting. As their car stopped, doors opened on the other vehicles. Frank stepped out to greet his allies. Ambassador Kielra of the Praxians was the first to approach. Standing nearly 7 feet tall with blue skin and 4 long fingers on each hand, the alien moved with surprising grace. He wore the formal gold robes of his position. "Negotiator Morrison," Kielra said in his musical voice. "It brings me joy to assist you after all you have done for my people." Frank bowed in the Praxian style, hands open at his sides. "The honor is mine, Ambassador. Your presence today gives strength to our cause." One by one, the other alien representatives approached. The reptilian Zeth ambassador, the feathered diplomat from Cygnus, and 4 others, each from worlds where Frank had helped forge peace or trade agreements. Each offered greetings and support in their own way. "The human betrayers will face justice today," said the Zeth, his scaled face showing no emotion even as his tail swished in anger. Frank introduced Sandra to each representative, then checked the time. "It's 10:25. The meeting started at 10:04. Gregory should be beginning his presentation now." Sandra received a message on her communicator. "Confirmed. He just started discussing the financial restructuring section. The room is full. All major shareholders and executives are present." Frank turned to address the gathered aliens. "My friends, today we expose deception and restore honor to a human company. Your presence shows the galaxy that true cooperation between our species stands against corruption." The aliens made various sounds and gestures of agreement. Frank continued, "When we enter, please allow me to speak first. I will signal when your testimony is needed." With final nods of understanding, the group began walking toward the headquarters building. Sandra's junior officers escorted them, while Sandra herself broke away to coordinate with her team already in position. As they approached the imposing glass tower of Stellar Bytes Earth headquarters, Frank saw another diplomatic vehicle pull up. The doors opened and Lily Johnson and Dan Peterson stepped out, looking confused and nervous in their restaurant uniforms. "Mr. Morrison?" Lily asked, clearly shocked to see him. "You're really back? We thought... the company says you're still in space." Frank stopped and extended his hand to her. "Ms. Johnson, I heard you crying in the break room a week ago." "What I heard changed everything." Lily's eyes widened. "That was you? The man in the black shirt?" Frank nodded. "Today, I'm fixing what went wrong while I was away. I want you both to witness it." Dan looked at the assembled aliens with awe. "Are those... ambassadors?" "Friends," Frank corrected. "Just like you two will be after today." They reached the main entrance of the headquarters. The security guards recognized Frank immediately and straightened to attention. "Ambassador Morrison." "Sir, we weren't told you were coming today." "That was the point," Frank replied. His deep voice carried the authority that had made alien leaders listen across the galaxy. "The shareholder meeting is in the main conference room?" "Yes, sir. 20th floor," the guard said, not even thinking to stop them. The unusual group moved through the lobby, drawing stares from employees. Frank walked with purpose, his uniform and the alien dignitaries creating an impression of power that made people step aside automatically. At the 20th floor, Sandra was waiting with 4 of her officers. "Everything is in position," she reported. "The financial crimes team is ready to move on your signal." Frank nodded and turned to Lily and Dan. "Wait here with Captain Martinez. When I call for you, come in." The 2 restaurant workers nodded, still looking overwhelmed by everything happening around them. Frank faced the large double doors of the conference room. He could hear Gregory's voice inside, talking about necessary adjustments to operational costs, the corporate language for cutting employee benefits. Frank took a deep breath, feeling the weight of 15 years away from Earth, the betrayal of his friend, and the suffering of people like Lily Johnson. "Let's go," he said to the alien representatives. The doors swung open. Frank Morrison strode into the room with 7 alien dignitaries behind him. Every head turned. The room fell, completely silent. Gregory Collins stood frozen at the presentation screen, his mouth open in mid-sentence. The Nexus Corporation executives at the head table looked shocked and confused. Frank moved to the center of the room, his metals catching the light, his presence filling the space. "Please continue, Greg," Frank said, his famous deep voice carrying to every corner. "I'm particularly interested in hearing about how cutting employee health care helps our bottom line." Gregory Collins recovered quickly, adjusting his tie and forcing a smile. "Frank, what a surprise. We weren't expecting you until next month for the promotional tour." "That's because you created a fake schedule to keep me away," Frank said, walking forward. The alien representatives spread out behind him, their presence impossible to ignore. "Just like you created fake reports about how well the company was doing." The shareholders began to whisper among themselves. Frank noticed how the Nexus executives leaned together, speaking urgently in low voices. "This is hardly the place for whatever concerns you might have," Gregory said, trying to maintain control. "Perhaps we could discuss this privately after the meeting?" Frank shook his head. No more private discussions. No more secrets. He turned to address the entire room. "My name is Frank Morrison. 15 years ago, I founded Stellar Bytes and then left it in trusted hands while I served Earth as a diplomat. A week ago, I returned to discover that my company had been secretly sold to Nexus Corporation." Gasps came from some of the smaller shareholders. Clearly, not everyone knew about the deception. Frank gestured to the aliens behind him. "Allow me to introduce Ambassador Keelra of the Praxian Collective, Ambassador Zoth of the Zeth Confederation, and representatives from 5 other galactic governments." Keelra stepped forward, his tall blue form commanding attention. "As chair of the Galactic Trade Commission, I have reviewed evidence of serious violations by the current management of Stellar Bytes. A Nexus executive stood up. This is outrageous. You have no authority to... Actually, they do, Sandra said, entering the room with her officers. Captain Sandra Martinez, Earth Diplomatic Corps. We have authority to investigate violations of the Galactic Trade Agreement, which Earth signed 8 years ago. Frank used his datapad to take control of the presentation screen. The display changed to show shipping records and transaction logs. For 3 years, Nexus has been using Stellar Bytes supply chains to conduct illegal technology transfers to the Krell Dominion, Frank explained. They've hidden restricted tech inside food shipments, counting on my reputation to avoid inspection. The Zeth representative hissed softly. The Krell threaten stability in 3 sectors. Providing them with advanced technology puts many worlds at risk. The room erupted into chaos as shareholders realized the danger. Sandra's officers moved to block the exits as several Nexus executives tried to leave. Frank raised his hand, and the room gradually fell silent. His years of diplomatic experience showed in the natural authority he projected. The crimes against galactic law are serious, Frank continued. But today I'm equally concerned with crimes against our own people. He touched his datapad again, and the screen changed to show pictures of Stellar Bytes employees. While executive bonuses increased by 300%, employee benefits were cut by 67%. The healthcare program that attracted quality workers was gutted. The training that ensured good service to all species was reduced to almost nothing. Frank looked directly at Gregory. You used my name and face to sell the idea that nothing had changed, while destroying everything the company stood for. Gregory's fake smile disappeared. It's called business, Frank. The company is more profitable now than ever. The shareholders have seen record returns. At what cost? Frank asked. He turned to the door and nodded. Captain Martinez, please, bring in our witnesses. Lily Johnson and Dan Peterson entered the room, looking nervous but determined. Frank gestured for them to join him. This is Lily Johnson, a server at our new Baltimore location, Frank said. For 14 months, she has provided excellent service to humans and aliens alike. Her manager's reports praise her work ethic and positive attitude. Frank placed a hand gently on Lily's shoulder. Last week, I overheard Lily crying in the break room because her mother needs a medical procedure that would have been covered under the original employee healthcare plan. The plan I created. The plan you eliminated, Greg. Lily nodded, finding her courage. I took this job because of the healthcare promise. My mom needs a special heart operation that costs more than I could ever save on my own. When I reached my 1-year mark, I was told the policy had changed. Several shareholders looked uncomfortable. One older woman was taking notes furiously. Gregory scoffed. One employee's personal problems don't justify this disruption. Business requires tough decisions. Business requires honor, Ambassador Kielra stated firmly. On my world, a business agreement is sacred. Frank Morrison made agreements with his employees that you broke. Frank touched his datapad again. The screen displayed a new document. As founder and still the majority shareholder through my diplomatic trust, I am invoking emergency powers under Section 47 of the company charter to dissolve the current board. Gregory laughed. You can't do that. The sale to Nexus was never properly registered with the Galactic Trade Commission as required by law, Sandra interrupted. My team has already frozen all related accounts pending investigation. The Nexus executives began shouting and protesting, but Sandra's officers moved in to control the situation. One by one, they were escorted from the room for questioning. Gregory was the last to be approached. As officers moved toward him, he turned to Frank with anger and disbelief. You can't just come back after 15 years and take over. The company evolved beyond your outdated vision. Frank stepped closer to his former friend. This was never just about profits, Greg. It was about proving that humanity could bring something positive to the galactic community. You forgot that. As Gregory was led away, Frank turned back to the remaining shareholders. Starting today, Stellar Bytes returns to its original mission. I am implementing an immediate restoration of all employee benefits and launching a new program that gives ownership shares to every employee with more than 1 year of service. The older woman who had been taking notes stood up. Mr. Morrison, Elaine Winters, representing the pension fund shareholders. We support your actions today. Ethical business is sustainable business. Frank nodded his thanks, then turned to Lily and Dan. Ms. Johnson, your mother's procedure has been scheduled for next week. All expenses covered. Tears filled Lily's eyes. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. No, Frank said with a gentle smile. Thank you for continuing to be Earth's true ambassador to our galactic friends, even when the company failed to support you. 6 months later, Frank stood in the kitchen of the new Baltimore Stellar Bites, helping the staff prepare for a special event. The restaurant had been closed for the day to host the company-wide celebration. Lily Johnson, now wearing the badge of Director of Employee Relations, checked items off her list as preparations continued. Everything's ready, Mr. Morrison, she reported. All 200 locations are connected to the feed for your announcement. Please just, Frank, he reminded her with a smile. And thank you, Lily. None of this would have happened if I hadn't heard you that day. The entire staff wore new uniforms with a special patch showing Earth centered among a galaxy of stars. The symbol represented the renewed mission of Stellar Bites, to share the best of humanity with the universe. When employees and alien guests were seated in the dining area, Frank stepped up to speak. He had never enjoyed making speeches, but this one was necessary. 6 months ago, I returned to find that the company we built together had lost its way. Today, we celebrate finding it again. He gestured to where representatives from 12 alien species stood along the wall. Our friends from across the galaxy have joined us because they believe in what we're doing here. Frank walked among the tables, making eye contact with as many people as possible. Stellar Bites was never just about the food. It was about showing the galaxy the best of humanity, our creativity, our hospitality, our care for each other. As applause filled the room, Frank knew his years among the stars had prepared him for his most important mission, proving that humans could do business with heart, that profit and principles could work together. Outside the windows, the night, sky filled with stars, reminded him that humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning.